All right, Bill gave the thumbs up.
Gave the thumbs up. Excellent. All right, I'd like to call this meeting, regular meeting of the Trumbull Police Commission to order at
6:07.
7 p.m. At this time, we can stand again for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, visible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I think we all are aware that this is National Police Week, and we're here to honor and remember the not just the 121 police officers who have died in the line of duty so far this year, but also all the members of our police departments throughout the United States who serve us and keep us safe every single day. So can we have a moment of silence for the deceased members of the police community? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'd just
Yes.
like to enter into the record. Obviously, as you mentioned, this is National Police Week. I want to thank all of our Trumbull police officers, current and past officers, for the dedication they've provided and the security to the residents and visitors to Trumbull. And I'd also like to remind everybody of the ultimate sacrifice that Special Police Officer John Montalbano made to the Trumbull Police Department and its community in 1974 when he was killed in the line of duty when he was struck by a vehicle.
Thank you. Chief, in follow-up to that, normally we do some activities during Police Week, but because of COVID, I think we've suspended those for this year. Is that correct?
Well, we're actually going to, Vivian arranged for us to have meals for all 3 shifts tomorrow.
Good.
But there are some things that have been shut down or postponed, I guess you'd say.
Okay.
But it's certainly something that at the department here, we celebrate our officers as well.
I think just for the newer members of the commission, just so you're aware, usually every other year during Police Week, we have an honors ceremony to honor police officers who've displayed extraordinary courage, done extraordinary police week or police work rather. And again, because of the situation with the COVID, we had to suspend that, and we'll look to do that at another date. So thank you, Chief.
Yes, thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is public comment. Bill, is there anybody from the public waiting to speak?
There's any member of the public who would like to speak, you may press the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen or press *9 if you're on the phone. It does not appear that anyone wishes to speak.
Okay, we'll close public comment at 6:10 p.m. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the April 13, 2021 Police Commission meeting minutes. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Chris Treves, we have a second?
I'll second.
Kathy Champion, second. Any discussion on those minutes? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposition? One abstention? One abstention, Mayor Beth. Okay. Correspondence, Chief?
Yes, as you can see in your packet, there's an email I sent to Officer Derek Lasser. I'm sure each of you have seen the article that was in the Connecticut Post and the Trumbull Times about the good work he did with a young child who's in a student at Booth Hill School who is deaf, and Derek can communicate through sign language. And probably over a month or so ago, one of our school resource officers, Brian Federoix, arranged for Derek to go over there and actually, sit and talk with her, chat with her for a bit, and her teachers, and just to try to explain to her that, give her a level of comfort that one of our officers can communicate with her, and that what police officers are here for, and really try to develop a good relationship with her. When we took that a step further, recently in the May 3rd, I believe it was the May 3rd article in the Connecticut Post, where he sat with Tisa Arden, who's the student, and her mom and her sister, and actually visited at their home, and again, just encouraged, but not only encouraged, but that relationship just grew and became stronger. And those are the things that you don't always hear about, but it's something that we really push our officers to be involved in, whether it's something like this, whether it's a, seeing some fellows or some youngsters, men or boys or girls playing ball at Madison Middle School. I can remember a couple of years ago where the officers pulled up and the students thought it was like a weekend, a Sunday, thought that the officers were going to tell them to leave the field. The officers got out of the car and they played ball with them for a while. So those are the things that we really want the officers to do, and we encourage them to do. And I was really happy how this all turned out for Officer Lasser and for the for our resident, for the student. That was the most important thing. And she's got a friend now. So, with Officer Lasser, somebody in the department. So those are the real good things. So I was really happy about that.
It's a great story.
Yeah, it really is. The next letter is from a resident thanking our officers who, it was just a simple thing where they actually stopped traffic on Main Street. So somebody from one of the cable companies could run a line across the street. I guess their service had been taken out. So they just, hand wrote a letter to me thanking the officer for taking a few minutes to do that, stopping traffic so it could get done. The following letter of correspondence is a resignation from Commissioner Al Zamri, who served on the police commission for many years. He actually was on the police commission when I applied to the department almost 7 years ago, and he was one of the commissioners that hired me. But you've all seen his letter to the town clerk resigning his position, and I really wish him all the best in his future. Commissioner Baldwin and I are going to go and visit him at his home on next Monday, I think, Monday afternoon, spend a couple hours with him and bring some memorabilia from the police department. He's a good person. He wasn't just a commissioner to me, he was a friend, and I'm going to miss him. And he's just a real good person, and he volunteered for this department and the town for many years. The next piece of correspondence you'll see is a memo that we received, a posting that we received on our Trumbull Police Department Facebook page from a person just saying that they recognize that we the officers in the field risk their lives every day, and there's a lot of noise out there, but he and his family support us, and that there are plenty of people out there in this country that support us, and that the good work the officers do does not go unnoticed. Next letter is a letter from somebody with the Yale New Haven Healthcare about Officer Duva, who's one of our school resource officers. He's at the high school, and the initiatives that he's involved in, outreach initiatives, helping to feed the community, toy drives, food drives, and others, and that Officer Duva has always made himself available to assist them. Moving on are our calls for service at the top of the page. As you can see, under April, it shows 1,512 calls in the month of April. This year, last year, same time, 1,892. As you can see, that fluctuates. It's usually between 14 and 1,800, 2,000 each month, depending on the activity in the field. Moving down to motor vehicle enforcement, you'll see that it shows totals for motor vehicle stops at 61. But what we need to add another column here for next month's meeting is that there were 89 additional stops on top of that 61 for a total of 150 traffic stops. And we try to encourage the officers to make contact with people. It doesn't have to be a ticket, doesn't have to be a written warning. As a matter of fact, those 89 were just verbal motor vehicle warnings. And I think the key to it is just contacts with people. One, it reduces crime, and two, it helps to, it just slows people, and we don't necessarily always have to go to a level of enforcement. Sometimes they will, and it's all up to the officer, but they have discretion in these matters. The following page We had 66 total criminal complaints to the department. 40 in the month of April, 43 were shoplifting or larceny cases, 3 stolen cars, 7 burglaries, 13 cars were entered, for again, a total of 66. And I say this every month, the cars that are broken into really aren't broken into, they're left unlocked. So I would say it every month, and we've put out press releases on it. Residents really need to lock their cars, because every time we go to one of these homes, it's my keys, the car was open. And even the stolen cars, the keys were in the cars, the fobs were in the cars. So lock the car, take your key in the house and secure it. Because unfortunately there are people out there that will take advantage of us. And then at the bottom of that page, about 2/3 of the way down, you see the alarm. We responded to 98 burglar alarms in the month of April. The following 3 pages are each one of the calls that I mentioned earlier, the 1,500 or so calls, and it just lists it just separates each call and how many times they responded to that type of call in the month. The school resource officer reports are the next 3 pages, or more pages. And that Officer Bartosik, who is at the Madison Middle School, he lists some of the medical calls he attended to, welfare checks, a domestic incident. He assisted another department with an investigation they were involved in. Then the training and some of the meetings he's attended and been involved in at the school. For the new commissioners, just so you know, we have 3 SROs in the department. Their primary assignments are one is at the high school, one at each middle school. However, the middle school SROs are also responsible for each of the elementary schools in town. So they do visit the elementary schools. They teach there to 5th graders as a transition. Although this year with the pandemic, we've decided with Dr. Semmel to put that in a pause right now, but it's a 10-week program that we've been teaching for about 3 years now in the schools to every 5th grader in the entire district. And it helps them with, transition to 6th grade next year when they go to middle school. And DARE is different than it was many years ago. Yes, there's a segment of it that talks about drug use and the harms of that, but is much more involved with really how decisions in our life and what the consequences to them can be, good decisions and bad decisions. So it's something to carry throughout their life. But what we also want them to be able to have is, a friendly face in the school from an adult when they go to middle school. So when they go to middle school, we do have an SRO in each one of those schools, like I mentioned. So they'll have somebody in an authority figure position where they have a friendly face the moment they walk in the door. And it's been very successful. We started under Dr. Chiaffi, and after the first year we did it, they loved it, and we've just continued doing it.
Chief, for the newer members of the commission, there was some talk about either statewide or by Senator Murphy and others to do away with the school resource program. Any updates from the state legislature?
I do not believe that bill has gone anywhere, really, in Connecticut at least. There was some state representatives that actually were trying to sponsor a bill to eliminate them. The Connecticut Chiefs Association, our argument is that's a local decision. It shouldn't be mandated by the state telling us where we deploy our people and how we do it. That should be a local decision between the police department and the Board of Education. The town of Trumbull completely funds those positions. We do not take any federal grant money or any grant money for those positions. In the past, they have been funded through the COPS office, through the Justice Department, to start them up in departments or to expand your SRO program. But Trumbull, the 3 we have not taken any money for it. So even if the grant goes away, we're still in a good place because we have funded it through our own budgetary process.
I know the chairman of the Board of Education, Lucinda Timpanelli, is a strong proponent of school resource officers, so I'm glad to see it staying. Thank you.
Yeah, we've received strong support from the Board of Education. Dr. Martin Semmel has been very supportive with the program as well.
Chief, can I just ask, going back to the DARE, I'm just curious, is part of it helping the kids, teaching them how to get out of these tricky situations that they might find themselves in, to get them out of, a situation in a safe way where they don't get in trouble?
I have to actually check. I'm sure that's a part of it. I have not been trained in DARE. I think it's a 2-week training session if I'm right. I know the Assistant Chief Burns finds us the training sessions and we send officers to it. And I would be surprised if that's not a segment of it. Yeah.
Just as a parent, I always think about
Yeah.
the tools you give your children to get out of tricky
Yeah.
situations.
I see the Assistant Chief shaking his head, so I assume that's part of it.
Yeah, I've taken quite an interest in this from the time that we did it several years ago. Then it was taken away from the school curriculum when we lost our trainer at the time. And we just restarted that, as the chief said, a few years ago. And it's been very well received at the school. And to answer your question, of the basic understanding I have of the material that's presented, it does include good decision making, making good choices, and it's related and it's scheduled along with the health classes in each of these schools to make it a good, healthy decisions all the way around and good life choices. So from the time that we did it years ago, it's been modernized and revamped several times to what it is today at all levels, including the basic level at 5th grade and the more advanced programs that we do in the middle schools.
Thanks.
Okay. Moving on, the next school resource officer report is Officer Scott Duva. He's assigned to the high school. He works very closely with the administration there and the faculty, as the others do. And he works with their security people as well. And you see some of the cases he was involved in: welfare checks, missing person, a couple of medical calls. I bring your attention to the second one down on his list, where that was brought to his attention early on in the school day, and we connected with the Stanford Police Department, and they communicated and interviewed our students relative to that case in their city. And then the training and meetings he's attended. All 3 of the school resource officers are members of TPAWD, including myself. And we attend those meetings every month, every Wednesday at 8 a.m. In the middle of the month, we sign on and we meet with Melissa and whoever else might be there. Sometimes I can't go there, but all 3 are involved in it. And, we've taken a real strong interest in that. We've gotten a lot of support from Melissa McGarry and the members of TPAWD. And I hope we've given back as much support as they've given us. After Officer Duva's report is the report from School Resource Officer Brian Federoix. Brian is assigned to Hillcrest Middle School, and he has listed all of the cases he's been involved in. He's done some, as you see on the right-hand column there, under incident type selective enforcement. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but we worked with the Board of Education, Captain Golden and Deputy Chief Cinto on Daniels Farm Road. So Daniels Farm Road, when school came back in session this year, there was a tremendous amount of traffic on Daniels Farm Road, picking up and dropping off students in the morning and afternoon, and it was really creating some issues with the traffic flow on the road. So we actually were able to find I don't know if you would call it an access roadway, but a different roadway through one of the side street behind the school, so parents could go that way instead of stacking up on Daniels Farm School. There were just not as many people using the bus as they were in the past, and we kind of attribute that to the pandemic, possibly parents not wanting to put their children on the bus, and for whatever the reason was, we had to make some changes. So we did that at Daniels Farm School. They're working on a similar situation at Booth Hill School as well. And then some of the training on the next page that Brian attended. The next page is, we have 2 canines that work full-time in the department. They, Canine Rico and Bain, they work for Officer Carlson and Officer Greg Lee. We've had a canine for, I don't know, Assistant Chief, probably 14 years or so, 12, 14 years. We've had 2 canines. They're a really good asset to the department and other towns. They work in patrol naturally, and it's kind of hard to tell from the report here, but they assist the officers in a lot of the calls that the officers go to also. They move around the town, they do a lot of things As you can see, some of the building searches, they do training several times a month with other K-9 officers that they may have to work with in a more regional training. The arrest summary, the first page is, I've actually asked records. There were 2 juvenile arrests in the month of April. If you're not familiar, especially the new commissioners, we have a juvenile review board that we started about 2 years ago. In Trumbull, we didn't have it. Many towns in the area do have that. So what a juvenile review board, commonly referred to as a juvenile JRB, is if we find juveniles that have committed minor offenses, I'm going to use shoplifting as an example, that are residents of Trumbull, instead of sending them to court, if they and their parents agree to cooperate, there's a juvenile review board where they would just get referred there. And sometimes it's, we're trying to get to why is this really happening if a 15-year-old committing some type of minor crime or something. And sometimes there are more things behind the scenes that are probably more important to be addressed, such as, I don't know, maybe a situation at home or something that, if we just send them to criminal court, nobody's ever going to know about. So this is just another way, it's another avenue. Instead of just referring somebody to a criminal court, it's something that we have someone from the Mary J. Sherlock Center that's on the board. We have Board of Education people and teachers that are on it, one of our police officers. So it's really new to Trumbull, but it's something that all the other communities in the area did. We looked into it and we thought it was a real good idea to start in Trumbull, so we did. The next 5 pages are 27 adult arrests that we made. It doesn't list the person's name there, but you'll see all the different charges, whether it's breach of peace, larcenies, assaults, whatever the case may be. So there are 5 pages of 27 separate arrests in the month of April and the arresting officers name. The next is the traffic report. The first page you see there where it says at the top, it's to the patrol supervisors, please read it, lining up for the different sectors in town. The town is broken up into different sectors for different areas of the town. So those are the situations where we may have complaints just from residents saying there's a speeding cars on Stonehouse Road every day at 3 o'clock or whatever the case may be. So the officers in those sectors will be assigned to those areas to do some selective enforcement. We do have 2 portable speed signs that we move throughout the town as well. And it's, they're calming devices when we can't put a police officer in every location either, but they do slow people down. If you see one, I don't care, your foot comes off your gas pedal a little bit. So it's just a calming device with an officer not being present. The first one is Shaolin Road. That's the location behind Daniels Farm School. So when we first started that, we didn't want the neighbors to feel that, first of all, we communicated with the neighbors before it started, and so did Public Works, that this is going to be happening. There's going to be more cars on your road in the day, in the morning and afternoon for drop off and pickup. But that driveway to the back of Daniels Farm School is one way, so you don't get the cars going in, picking up and coming back. They go in, they pick up their child, and they go out, they exit Daniels Farm Road. So it's limited in that regard, but we also had the officers be present there in case there were some issues, and there really haven't been that have been brought to our attention. And then the next page of the traffic report is, right now we have 1 officer assigned to the traffic division. That's Officer Kyle Silgermacki. And this is just his monthly report. He had 58 cases during the month of April. You can see it's broken down 3 motor vehicle stops, 1 DUI arrest, some complaints, funeral escorts, car seat installations, and so forth. Moving on from there is the detective division report. They have the column over to the right, open cases. They presently have 32 cases that are open. They closed 5 during the month of April, but they also brought in 14 new cases. And those can be cases from, as you can see, from auto theft to burglary to drug investigations, whatever it might be. And sometimes they come in and get closed quickly, and sometimes they can go on for months, depending on how involved the case may be. And some of the cases, many of them are throughout the tri-state area that they have to follow up and work with other agencies. But they're very thorough. We've got a good group of officers in there right now, and we're pleased with the work that they're performing. And the next monthly status report is from, again, oh, I'm sorry, it continues on with the Detective Bureau. Some of the highlights, Lieutenant Weir is in charge there, and he reports to Assistant Chief Burns, who has the overall authority over the Detective Bureau. And it's just, he kind of breaks down some of the cases and the call outs that they've been involved in, and a brief synopsis of some of the work that, that they're doing on the cases. I think if you turn to page 2 in that report, and Assistant Chief Burns, correct me if I'm wrong, but where it says DB investigations in bold, cleared by arrest, where it says arrest warrants serve organized retail theft. Glenn, is that the case that we worked on for quite a few months? And if you want to, can you give some information to the commission so they're aware of the magnitude of that case?
Yes, this was a significant case in the in its span, and both in the size of the theft that was involved, in the reach in the multiple states that it spanned. I believe there was a total of 5 arrests that were made. The last one just recently, this past month. What started as a rather routine shoplifting here at our local mall, the detectives recognized that it had, along with the security people at the individual stores, they noticed similarities to other stores throughout the state. And we had similar descriptions from other departments for the same suspects who had committed very similar crimes. Through a variety of investigation techniques, including search warrants and surveillance and sharing information with other departments, they realized this one group that was based in Bridgeport was traveling through not only a variety of places in Connecticut, but also into New York and Massachusetts, and stealing very large quantities of merchandise of all kinds. And they found that it was also being brought back and sold in a variety of venues on the street locally. The detectives continued the investigation, continued sharing information, and at the same time, this had spiraled off into other types of fraud that was being committed, including unemployment fraud and some even different types of crime that was almost unmanageable that we had to pass off to other agencies. The detectives culminated the theft case, drew up their arrest warrants, conferred with the prosecutors in the local courts, and now serve the warrants for the charges that you see here. It's a significant size in the thousands of dollars of merchandise that was stolen, and really brought down a small enterprise of a criminal conspiracy that they had running here. And they were doing very well up until the time that they were just recently arrested. So I give them a lot of credit with the amount of time and effort that was put into this type of case, which could have easily been closed out as a simple shoplifting, but became much more, which they put an end to.
Good, excellent work.
Yeah, it was quite extensive. I think Detective Siljamaki was, Siljamaki, going back to traffic. Detective Kyle Lavin, that's where I got it mixed up. Their first names are Kyle, but he was kind of the lead investigator for us, and I believe Sergeant Pyrezis worked with him on it, and they were all over pulling this together and piecing it together. And the unemployment fraud, I think, was somewhere to the tune of, I think, close to $500,000.
That's
that
correct.
They defrauded unemployment from. So they did a lot of work, and it was good. It was good work.
Excellent job.
Yep, definitely. The next tab, moving on, is the training report that Officer Fedor, he's our training officer for the department. And you can see all the different types of training that officers attended, whether it was EMR, which is emergency response, which all the patrol officers are, because we're first responders to medical calls in Trumbull, or dive team training, or ERT, which is our emergency response team, which is regionalized with 5 other police departments, crisis intervention team networking, and then under the TPOD coalition meetings, as you can see, we all attended that. We always, each year, participate in Take Back Drugs Day. That's something that started quite a few years ago. We used to do it at Daniels Farm School was a drop off. Now we've moved it to EMS headquarters, and it's worked out. It's very central to the location and people in town. And then we did some, the last portion at the bottom of that page is the active aggressor or active shooter training. We did it at one of the middle schools in town. We've done it at the high school. We did it at Madison Middle School this time. We've done it in various schools to acclimate the officers, not just to the training and the concept and how it all works and how they work together as a team when they, God forbid, have to go to that type of a call, but how to, it gives them a better layout of the land of that school also. So it serves two purposes, but obviously active shooter, active aggressor training is something that's a high priority. We do it every year, separate from our firearms training. And then the police cadet program is something that Officer Fedor, Lieutenant Weir, and Officer Giswald are involved in. And it's been a little more difficult the last year with COVID, not being able to have in-person meetings, but I think it's going to start, it's been starting up again, and hopefully this summer will really open it up. And then the SICK monthly report, on average in the month of April, of the 76 officers that we currently have, there's 0.7 days per month. So we had, that's really good. We had 55 sick days total in the month. Remember, we have 3 shifts a day, so that includes the 31 days in the month or 30 days in the month times the 3 shifts. So it's a lot of shifts, and it was real low, which is real good. The budget report.
Wait, Mike, I'm sorry. What constitutes as light duty? What's light duty?
If someone were hurt or injured or sick and they couldn't come back full duty, but their doctor said, listen, they can go back and do light duty. And if we had a position for them, say, where they could work in the records department, the particular officer I think that you see here in this report from April is one of our detectives who was out. He had some surgery and he couldn't come back regular duty, which means he could go on the road and get involved in anything. So light duty, he was able to come in and work on some projects and some cases within the building, so they're not exposed to the elements or what may occur out in the field. So, and then it's good for them because it's not good for anybody to be home long term, but it's also, it's good for us too, because we do get some productivity out of people too when we bring them back like that.
Thank you.
The next page is our budget, and I think we're doing really well, considering I think we're going to be short a little, but the only reason why we're short this year, the money is there, but it's in contingency. When we did this budget last year, the police contract hadn't been settled yet, and they were without a contract for a while. So there's 3 years of raises that are not in this budget because we didn't know what the raises would be, so we couldn't budget for it. I've spoken with First Selectman Tesoro, and I've several times, and Maria Pires, and the money's there. It will just be transferred to cover the shortage that we may have at the end of the year. So we will not be short. We will not have to ask for a special appropriation. It's just in a different account. So that'll be, I think, our 7th year without having to ask for a special appropriation in a row. So a lot of the work is, the assistant chief does a lot of the work. He works very closely with the budget, with our purchasing clerk, and we just track it all the time, and we talk about it all the time. And there are times overtime's a big account, but we're short 6 officers right now. The overtime account, as you can see, we haven't spent as much as we normally would at this time of the year, but remember, last year, there were not many people taking vacation time, not many people going away, so there wasn't as much of a need for it last summer because people just didn't travel. That's going to change, and we got a slight increase in this coming year's budget if it does finally get approved from the 830,000 that's approved this year to 840,000. So naturally, we'll transfer the line items that we don't use all the money, we will transfer to cover the salary, which is where we're going to have the biggest shortage. But like I said, the assistant chief and I have spoken, we won't be able to cover all of it. If you've been involved in the budget process, what we do is when we do the budget for salary, like we're short 6 officers right now, there's always an attrition that the town takes into consideration and generally takes about 150,000 out of our budget because of that attrition rate and because it does take so long to hire a police officer, that they know we're not going to be spending as much of that payroll amount. So this year, like I said, it's been very difficult to make up only because of those three years of raises that are there. And Glenn, am I missing anything, or would you like to add anything?
That's right on target. We're very close, coming at this point in the year within 2 months to close out, because of that adjustment in the full-time salaries. That shows that, and it is of course the biggest line that we have in our department. It shows that we're well over where we should be, but of course over 3 years of hourly adjustments, that's to be expected.
Yeah.
Overall, though, we're in very good shape, and we've tracked very well this year. We did put our proposal together for next year with the understanding and the expectation that we'll be returning to normal operation, or as close to normal as we could be, considering last year's events.
Sure.
Yeah. And for the new commissioners, at least Kathy, I know Mary Beth, you're probably well aware of this, but the department has been authorized for several years now for 81 police officers. Last year, there was a grant that we learned that the Justice Department through the COPS office was putting out to expand for neighborhood policing. So we applied, we went through to the town council, and they approved us applying for the grant, and it adds one more officer to our department for 82nd officer, but it's going to be more of a neighborhood officer who's going to, his or her responsibilities will solely be at the mall. So we have a lot of activity there. We have a lot of people coming and going. We have a lot of stores and so forth. So we thought, and the assistant chief was really behind a lot of this, that, hey, you know what, that's a neighborhood for us that really needs direct attention all the time. And it was a great idea. So it was approved, and we're going to look to place somebody there this summer if all works out well. So we're really looking forward to that.
Mike, do you or maybe Glenn know what's the foot traffic for the mall on a typical year? We're not counting the COVID year, but.
Glenn may know, but I do know, last time I spoke to Patrick there, the manager, they were at about 8 million people a year. And
that's
before
correct.
Is that right?
That's right. That's the most recent estimate that we have. Of course, that was prior to last year.
Yeah. I know that at one point they were over 9 million. So, and we expect, they're going to be breaking ground any day with the apartments that are going to go in along these streets there that connect from Main Street to Ring Road. And so there'll be some activity there with not just the work, but when those apartments are occupied. And I think the occupancy rate for the apartments like 10 Trumbull, some of the others are almost 100%. They're very high.
10 is 100%.
Yeah. So, those are our responsibilities, whether it's medical calls we need to go to or be a presence or whatever it is. So we have to pay attention in those areas as well. So it's something we're always considering. So are there any questions from my report?
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any questions from any commissioners? More great work. Thank you very much, Chief. Thank you, Assistant Chief Burns. All right, so old business. On the agenda is a modification of Assistant Chief Glenn Burns' contract. The commissioners that are present have a copy before them. I think, Chris, one was emailed to you, and Kathy Champion, I think one was.
Yeah, I got a chance to look at it. Thanks for that. Thanks for the heads up, Ray. I did get a chance to look at it before the pension meeting. So,
right. So the items that are changing in the contract, if you look at paragraph 1, term of the agreement, You see the effective date is May 15, 2021, continue for a term of 5 years through 2026, except as otherwise set forth at the conclusion of the contract expiring May 15, 2026, the contract will renew for 4 years rather than 3 years. And that coincides with with Chief Lombardo's contract. Paragraph 3 just shows the adjustment for salary, which was negotiated. Paragraph 7 eliminates some language in there so that the termination of the agreement shall be for just cause, as the same thing is with the chief. And the last item is paragraph 11, just adjusting the expiration date to June of 2023. And that's for purposes of understanding or, spelling out the benefits, rights, privileges under the contract. I've reviewed it with Assistant Chief Burns. I believe that the actual language in the contract says that be executed and changed and authorized by the chair of the police commission, but I wanted to share with the entire commission. And I'd like to entertain a motion to approve that those changes.
So moved.
I have a move from Commissioner Magliocco, a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a lot of seconds in there. Any discussion about it?
Who would you like it second?
The second we'll use Mary Beth Thornton. I think she indicated first. We'll give an honorable mention to Commissioner Treves for coming in close second. Close third. All right, no further discussion.
Wait, I'm sorry, just one quick question. I'm assuming that the increase in salary is covered in the budget request.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay.
If I could just add my 2 cents, I think it's well-deserved. I think Glenn has done a wonderful job. Certainly everything the chief refers to as what he is in charge of, and his efforts at the police station as well with the upgrades. So well-deserved, and I'm happy to see it's happening now.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comments?
If I could just add something, Kathy, just so you understand, the 125,901, I believe, was when this contract started 3 years ago. It's not a jump from that to the 134. There have been raises each year in accordance with whatever the deputy chief and assistant chief get raises that are equal to what the union has negotiated and what they get. So it's increased to the 134, 263, I think, over those 3 years. Each year it's increased a little.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, hearing no further discussion, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Next,
Thank you.
under old business, the building renovation update. We have Commissioner Magliocco, who's the chairperson of the committee, and Assistant Chief Burns. Which of you are going to address the update? Glenn, okay. Assistant Chief Burns, you're on again.
Fair enough.
Do a good job. You just got a raise.
Terrific, and I thank you all for your support. Once again, we're in the very final phases of this, the renovation for the basement level at the police department. All the installations have been completed. It now rests with one final piece on the exterior outside of our firing range, which is on awaiting the public works to make a determination for some additional applications in order to control the sound or any noise that might be emitting from the building. And that's in the best interest of our neighbors. We expect that'll be handled by the Public Works Director, who has been very helpful and supportive in our project since in his time here with the town. And once that's completed, we'll be wrapping up the project entirely and putting it away with the final report to the council when that happens.
Are the neighbors generally satisfied with the screening of the side of the building?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, just getting into my car last week, I spoke to some of the neighbors that were right over the fence, and their first comment was, "Thank you for covering that."
Okay.
So it's a dramatic difference, the fencing that was put in there as compared to the ductwork that was visible prior.
It looks very good. It looks excellent. Good job. Any questions for either Assistant Chief Burns or Commissioner Magliocco? Okay, thank you for the report.
You're welcome.
Next item on the agenda, new business. First item is discussion and consideration of terminating the current police officer written exam list and authorizing a new list, new test. Chief, you want to talk to that?
Yes, so we, as I mentioned earlier, have 6 openings in the department for entry-level, patrol level. The current test that we have was given about a year ago. We have not been able to get any background investigations done really, or any interviews of them because of the COVID issue. And at this time, in my discussions with some of the staff, we would like to eliminate this list, terminate the list, and authorize human resources to have another test given so we can have a fresh list and we can get the written exam done, then the interview phase done, and then work on background investigations. We have asked for a number of seats at the police academy, which starts in September. So it takes a while to hire people. Even September, if we were given a test in June, is going to be a push. So we really want to get on it and get the commission to approve this tonight so we can get a new test given.
So you're going to need some support moving this forward. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the recommendation of terminating the old list and authorizing the new test. Commissioner Magliocco has made a motion to accept that. We have a second. Okay, Commissioner Thornton, any discussion? Any questions of the chief? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. Any abstentions? Okay. All right, you're all set then, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, next item is a review of responsibilities for newly appointed police commissioners. Okay, who will be conducting this?
So I've invited our Human Resources Director, Tom McCarthy, in to speak with the commission. I think it's a good idea periodically, but also when we have new commissioners, as we do, just to kind of, if there are any questions that they'd like to ask and just some of their roles, responsibilities as we move forward. So Tom, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Chief. I apologize. I had to go to my phone because my laptop keeps on dropping for some reason. So I'm on the phone. So I apologize if I look or sound weird. Welcome to the new commissioners. This is it's nice to see some good looking faces as opposed to the people who like Ray we used to look at. But so. Listen, there's two levels here in the police commission. There are 2 things that you're responsible for that have to do with me. One of them is hiring, and one of them is the grievance process. And in terms of the hiring process, you just heard that we got rid of the current list that was happening because we couldn't get through it. I mean, between the police department and human resources, it was just impossible. I mean, think about having to do oral examinations in the middle of the pandemic. I mean, things like that just made it impossible. So the chief and I had discussions and agreed that we should kill this test and then start again. But what we're going to do is, by the way, we're going to reach out to the folks that applied last time to make sure they know and they get a special notice to get back into the line because we think it's important. And so what happens generally is that HR does the initial advertising. Then there are pre-requirements for this, and the CHIPS test. You have to have a chip card meeting. You have to go through the physical abilities part of it before you can apply. You have to take a written test. That is something we do as a combined thing through the I think it's the Chiefs Association, right, Chief?
Yes.
And then so then there's a screening process done through all that. Then there's an oral examination that is done with the HR, but through the police department. Police department does point on that. And once all that happens, then a ranking is created that is given to the police department. And then there is the background checks, polygraphs, all that kind of stuff happens. After all of that happens, then it comes to the police commission. When it gets to the police commission, then it really is, you are the appointing authority. You really are the final word on who gets hired. So you have the power to make the decision, and we encourage you to do an interview and to meet with each of the candidates, because by that point, they have been thoroughly screened by that point. But I think it's important to always remember that we live in a very litigious world these days, and the rankings that are provided and then move their way up through the different testing processes, they're important, and it's important to try to stick to those if you can, because what you don't want is open up the town to a lawsuit for someone who may have ranked high and then got passed over through the interview process. So although you do have the power and the right to interview, and we encourage that, we would really want to have a very, very strong rationale if someone was going to be skipped for a various reason at your level. And that's the kind of thing that we would work with the chief and myself with, and we would help you through that process. But you are the appointing authority, so you get to choose who goes on the police department, who gets hired. So that is a very strong responsibility. In that process, we're hopeful that if there are any conflicts, that you would make us aware of them. If your brother, cousin, sister, uncle is applying, we would want you to tell us that so that we can make proper accommodations for that. But that's kind of natural thing. But so from the hiring process, you really are the end of the road. In this instance, we may be, because of the time frame, the chief knows that this is going to be tight. So we may be asking you to do special sessions of the police commission to get in those interview sessions, and we'll come back to you to let you know. But the chief really is responsible for that, because it is important to know that hiring of the uniformed police officers is not a civil service commission responsibility. It's odd because everywhere else I've worked, civil service is responsible for hiring uniformed services, but here that's not true. So the chief and the police department actually are ultimately responsible under the police commission for the hiring of all the officers. Second thing is the grievance process. The police commission is part of the police union contract. You are the step 2, the second step of the process. When a grievance is filed by the union, the first step is it goes to the police chief, and generally in that step, that's what the police chief will bring me in, and we will do a full effort in trying to solve it at the first step level, because we think for most things, solving it at the chief's level is the best way to do business, but sometimes you just can't do that. You will see that most likely the things that will come in front of the police commission are actually the more serious disciplinary type things that we would not, on our level, when I say our level, I mean the chief's level, step 1, we would not have a desire to settle, because the chief makes a disciplinary decision and passes it on to the commission. There's a very good reason for that. And we have already evaluated that. So what will generally happen is that there'll be a hearing in front of the police commission, and you sit like a panel of judges on the police commission, and some scenario of the chief, myself, and outside counsel will generally do the presentation, and then someone will be the legal counsel to the police commission. We recently had an issue like this, I want to say, 2 months ago, and maybe 3 months ago at this point. And I actually was because I'm an attorney, and I represented the police commission. So I was in executive session with you, and I was able to answer questions and give you guidance based on the issue that was at hand and what the legal obligations are. and we did hire an outside counsel to actually present the case. And then the union then gets to present their case on a disciplinary. And so the most important takeaway though, from that side, the grievance side, is that it's important that commissioners don't act outside of the commission, meaning they don't do their own investigations or talk to the police officer that's in the process of discipline. It's very important that the commission acts together and acts based on what is presented to them in a hearing. So, I'm sure none of you would ever do that, but I just wanted to give a cautionary tale that it is very important that that the commission acts in an official capacity together with the evidence that's presented to them by the chief or the town, and then whatever information is then given by the police union in representation of the employee. So those are generally the two big issues. And by the way, you aren't the final word on the grievance. Just so you know, if you guys make a decision one way or the other on a grievance, the union has the option to go to the state board of mediation and arbitration, and that is my world again. And the final word actually are the arbitrators in mediation arbitration. So you are a very important step in the process, and it's very important to have your decision as part of the final step of the process. But really, the mediation arbitration really is the final word. So so you shouldn't be concerned about making a decision that's going to hurt someone forever, because they have many chances and many options an employee does in a grievance, in a disciplinary hearing. So are there any questions about any of that stuff?
You're gonna have to mute.
Hold on, I think we have a.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
I have a question, and maybe you can explain to the.
Yeah, is everybody else hearing that? I'm hearing.
Yeah, Ray's turning his on. Thought it was a mute button. Okay. My question pertains, I think it's good for everybody to get a refresher on this, but also the new members. When we go into executive session, what we discuss in executive session stays in executive session. And any of the discussions that we have, could we be liable for anything that we say in executive session?
That is an extremely, thank you. That is an extremely important point. And I'm sure a lot of folks have gone through this type of process and been on boards and commissions. And I know Mary Beth with the town council has that great experience. Yeah, when you go into executive session, it is essential that what happens in there stays in there. The point of executive session is to allow for a free exchange of dialogue in very strict circumstances. So you aren't always allowed to go into executive session, and that's why someone like myself, as the legal advisor to the commission, I would let you know when you're allowed to go in and not go in. But when you do go in, and by the way, a lot of what I do, I would talk to you guys in executive session, like collective bargaining type issues always would be in executive session. Disciplinary type decisions, you're going to do that in executive session. Now, there is an option for someone, an employee, if they have a disciplinary hearing, they can have it in open session if they want and have the hearing itself. But the deliberations would still be in an executive session, and you would have to keep what you learn inside very held close to the vest. You could talk to other members that were in the executive session about it, but other than that, you can't do that. It is very important. And with police type issues and police officers, and the risk of, if there is an officer in front of you, the risk of injury to their career and their reputation is a very large issue legally, and could put the city into deep liability if someone did speak outside of the executive session about what was in there.
And us being commissioners, and what we say in executive session, could that be brought up to the ethics commission, or we could be held liable for what we say, or comments that are made during executive session?
So during it, yeah, I mean, everyone who is a commissioner or officer of the town is liable to the ethics commission. Things that are said within the ethics executive session are generally protected, except for you can't. I mean, there's a reasonability test, right? You couldn't say something vulgar or harass someone or threaten or anything like that. So even if you're executive session, you wouldn't be protected for doing things like that. Speaking about what is in executive session outside of the executive session, yes, can lead to an ethics charge, because you have an obligation to the town to use your due diligence to keep the information inside executive session.
I have a question for Tom. This is Mary Beth. Who determines whether or not we should go into executive session? Is that your determination?
So I don't have a vote on whether you go into executive session, but I certainly, if I'm acting as your legal counsel, which most of the time I will be, then yeah, I would give you my legal opinion as to whether you have the right to go into executive session. Whether you actually go into executive session is one of the members has to make a motion to go into executive session and then second it and then vote it in. So the answer is I'm going to tell you when you can't, and if you go in against my legal advice, then you put the town at risk. FOI is very, very strict about when you can or cannot go in executive session.
Okay. Thank you.
Follow-up question to that. You haven't been present at, am I muted? No, I think I'm okay.
Oh, I can hear you.
Okay, so there's been plenty of meetings where you haven't been present and we've gone into executive session. So for the most part, if we agree it's time to go into executive session, we should be okay. Is there a way to check and balance that before it's too late, or just curious? So
you have a great advantage in having a chair who knows the rules very well. And so Ray's got that. So I'm pretty confident that you guys have followed the executive session rules, but there are very strict rules. You can only go into executive session for very precise reasons. So you can't, even if you all think you want to go into executive session to talk about something, if it doesn't meet the rules, you're not allowed to go into executive session. And so what that might lead to is if someone filed a charge in FOI and you went into executive session illegally, then you could be held liable personally, but also the town would be held liable, and there could be fines. They would make you create some sort of document telling what you talked about inside executive session, which is a risk, because if you think you're protected in your speech in executive session, then you're not. There's a risk to that for you. So it's important to know what is allowed and what is not allowed to go to the executive session. And if at any point in time you want me to do a quickie training on the overall rules of that, I'm more than willing to do that.
So if I might, Commissioner Treves, many times when I'm working on the agenda, I will communicate with Tom and I say, Tom, I have this topic. Can we go into executive session? And he'll say, yes, you can, or you probably shouldn't. He'll tell me, he'll advise me. And there are times I've been to training, and so is Vivian, as a matter of fact, on FOI. And if I'm not certain about something, I'll check with Tom. Or I know Cindy Katsky is kind of up to speed on that, but mostly I'll speak to Tom. Say, Tom, is this something we can do? And if we can do it, we do it. If we can't do it, then we won't do it. We'll just leave it public like it should be.
In general terms, if we talk personnel matters or anything to do with the contract negotiations, those are usually the only two circumstances we go into executive session. So it is pretty limited. You can pick up a copy of Robert's rules. They pretty much outline when you can and cannot go into executive session. But generally speaking, we have vetted it before we even set the agenda up. So as we set the agenda up, so we're on pretty solid ground.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep. Tom, thank you very, very much for the tutorial.
Thank you, everybody.
Hey, Tom, can you stay on for our final item?
Absolutely. And by the way, I'm available, all of you, can have my contact information, and you can call me whenever you want about any questions whatsoever. Ray and the chief are very, they know more than I do by a mile about Trumbull. But I'm always available for whatever questions you have, even if it's just a follow-up to what we've talked about here or during a meeting. Feel free, reach out.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is there's some pending grievances. Chief, do you have an update on that?
Yes, so the grievances that we had were regarding a automated software program that the town had purchased for overtime and special duty hiring, where it's just all done through, it's just pushed out automatically through a system. It's not done manually. We're not making phone calls. It does everything right through the computer. There were some differences on our ability to do it or not when it came to the special duty assignments. And so we received grievances from the union about that, but Tom McCarthy and I met with the union yesterday and their representative, and we settled them. We settled all of them. Not only did we settle them, we settled moving forward what the parameters, I guess you would say, Tom, will be. Part of the settlement, it's a tentative agreement that needs to be ratified by the police union and the town council. And Tom, correct me if I'm wrong any place here.
Yep, no, you're right. Yep.
But we do have a tentative agreement. It's without getting into the details about it right now, because it hasn't been ratified. It's a 1-year extension of their working contract. Tom and I communicated with the first selectman several times during the day yesterday about some of the, I guess you'd call it negotiations, Tom, that we were doing. Yep. And so we got it settled, and that's really it. The next step is it goes to the union for ratification, then and the town council for approval.
Good.
And
Any questions?
If I could just have one quick follow-up. This was a pretty major issue with the union and the town, and I'll be honest with you, I wasn't confident we'd be able to solve it. And I have to applaud the union. I have to especially applaud the chief and all three chiefs. They really stepped up and did a really incredible job yesterday of getting to a solution that worked for all the union members and protected them, but all at the same time protected the town. So I think it's a really good deal, and I applaud the chiefs, all of them, for really working very hard to make sure a good deal got in place.
Yeah, well, Tom, I have to thank you also, because you are definitely the voice of reason many times. So thank you for your work on it. It was a process, because we've been working with the union on this for months. And
well, I think months, yeah.
From a time consumption standpoint, having this system in place, this automated system in place, makes a whole lot of sense. And it's been tried successfully in many, many departments throughout the country. So I'm glad we were able to settle the differences. Good job.
Yeah, yep.
All right.
So that's really all I have.
I don't see anything else on the agenda, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Magliocco, a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Treves, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.